How's it going, my busy bunch of bakers? Hope you're having a great day so far. Welcome back to another video. Today, I'll show you how to make super soft and squishy hot dog rolls. So let's get in the kitchen and see how it's done. I have been remaking a bunch of old recipes to fit my new methods. Recently, I posted an updated version of my Tangjong sandwich loaf, and when I was going through a list of my old videos, I came across my Tangjong hot dog buns, so I decided to update them also. The method and the recipe are slightly different from the original. The new version is a lot simpler, quicker, less messy and all around easier, and the result is just as good, if not better. You'll get the softest hot dog buns you've ever made, all thanks to the Tangjong. So let's just get right to it. Let me show you how it's done, starting with the ingredients. For the dough, we'll need white bread flour, milk, yeast, salt, sugar and butter, and we'll use an egg for glazing. You can of course choose a different type of glaze. I like egg, because it's pretty much ready made and it produces a beautiful finish. When it comes to the equipment, we'll need a bowl, scales, a dough scraper, a temperature probe, a brush, a whisk and a small pan for cooking the roux. We'll also need a tray with some non-stick paper for baking. You can use a larger tray, but I have this little tray which fits 5 hot dog buns perfectly. It's 10.5 by 6.5 inches or 26 by 16 centimeters. Okay, let's get to it. Let's make the Tangjong. I have boiled this recipe down to the bare essentials, and I've made it as simple as I can, and that starts with the roux. Normally it would contain only flour and liquid, but to make our life easier, we'll also add in the salt, the sugar and the butter. This way we won't have to incorporate them later. Make sure you weigh all the ingredients in the pot, and take note of the final number. As you cook the roux, some of the liquid will evaporate, and we'll have to replace it after cooking. The starch in the flour will gelatinize below 70 degrees Celsius or 160 Fahrenheit, so we don't need to cook this mix for very long. Once it becomes thick, it's ready. It'll take no more than 5 minutes. As soon as you take it off the heat, pour it in a bowl and weigh it. Then calculate how much liquid has evaporated and replace it. Give it a quick mix, cover it up and leave it to cool down. You can also pop it in the fridge to make it cool down sooner. This roux will make the hot dog buns extremely soft, and it will make them stay softer for longer. You can find detailed videos about Tangjong, Udane and scalding in the Principles of Baking playlist. It's worth checking those out if you are new to this. But even without knowing the details, you'll still be successful by following this recipe. Be sure to scrape all the condensate from the lid back into the roux, then give it a quick mix and take its temperature. I left mine to cool down to around 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about room temperature. Now we can move on to finishing the dough. Add the yeast to the roux and give it a quick mix. Finally, add the flour, grab your dough scraper and mix it to a dough. My Tangjong was pretty cool, so the dough turned out a little bit cooler than I expected. Usually I would aim for around 24 degrees Celsius or 25 degrees Celsius, which is 75 to 77 Fahrenheit. At just over 22 degrees Celsius or 72 degrees Fahrenheit, my dough was a little bit under. If your dough is slightly warmer, bulk fermentation may take around 2 hours. For me, it took an hour and a half. But no matter the temperature, halfway through bulk fermentation, we'll give this dough a fold. So cover it up, leave it to ferment. Once the time is up, remove the dough from the bowl and give it a fold. This dough is not very sticky, so you don't need to dust it with flour. Just drop it out on the table with the smooth side down, flatten it out, fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle to reach point where it started. Then flip it smooth side up again, tighten it against the table and back in the bowl it goes. Cover it up, leave it to finish bulk fermentation. It should get to about twice the size. Once it's all nice and puffy, we can move on to dividing it and pre-shaping it. Weigh your dough ball and divide it into 5 equal pieces. These hot dog buns will fit frankfurters. If you want them to accommodate a larger sausage, you should divide the dough in fewer pieces. But you could also use the dough to make burger buns. Simply shape them into rounds when it comes to final shaping. But when it comes to pre-shaping, it's all the same. And it goes the same way as the fold did earlier. Flatten the dough, fold the edge over the middle, go around in a circle to reach point where you started. Once you have a nice tight dough ball, the pre-shaping step is done. Repeat with the remaining pieces of dough, then cover them up, leave them to rest for 30 minutes. This dough is relatively elastic, so we must let it rest for a good while before we can do the final shaping. You may need to reduce the resting time in some cases. If your kitchen is very warm and your dough turned out very warm and is fermenting rapidly, you will not need as long. So give it around 20 minutes or so. Right, it's final shaping time. Give your dough ball a good dusting of flour, place it on the table with the smooth side down, then flatten it out into an oblong shape. And then starting from the top, roll it up nice and tight. I guess a hot dog roll is kind of like an enriched mini baguette. Once you have rolled it up, you can adjust the length a little bit and taper the ends if you want to. The final shaping is pretty easy, but it can take some practice. Luckily for you, you got 4 more pieces to practice on. But don't worry, even if they turn out a little bit wonky, they'll still taste great. Okay, arrange your hot dog buns on a tray side by side with little gaps between them. To stop them from sticking to each other, we'll brush some butter between them. And this trick goes for any bread that is baked side by side. Right, let's cover these bad boys up and leave them for the final proof, which took me around an hour and a half. You want them to become nice and puffy. During the final hour of fermentation, preheat the oven to 170 degrees Celsius, 340 Fahrenheit, fan on. If your oven doesn't have a fan, go for 190 degrees Celsius or 375 Fahrenheit. To make the crust extra rich and beautiful, I decided to go with the double glazing technique. And it's exactly what it sounds like. We'll brush the buns with egg once, then we'll leave them to dry out for 5 minutes, and then brush them again. This will give them a richer, darker color and make them slightly chewier. Once they're all glazed up, these bad boys are ready for the oven, so let's get them in there. They'll take around 25 minutes to fully bake. If your oven's a bit funny like mine and bakes things more on one side than the other, then you may turn the tray around halfway through the bake to ensure that the crust bakes nice and evenly. Once your hot dog buns are beautifully golden brown all over, they're ready. Anyway, do we call these buns or rolls? Because I always get confused. Tell me what you would call them. I guess we could all agree that we could call them beautiful. These things turned out so nice. And to make them even shinier, I decided to brush them with some oil. You don't need to do this, they were shiny already. But I'll leave it up to you. But there you have it. That's how I make ultra soft hot dog buns. You could make a couple of dozen of them on a big tray, and then tear them off one by one and fix up some hot dogs. You could also make the gaps between them larger and bake them individually. I personally prefer them like this. I like that the sides don't have a crust on them. But tell me what you prefer down in the comments. And tell me what's your favorite hot dog topping. I'm not much of a connoisseur. Some mustard, sauerkraut and gherkins do it for me. I also had some chili mayo in the fridge, so I decided to squeeze that on too. I'm sure that by now we can all appreciate the fact that pre-cooking some of the flour and then adding it to bread dough turns our loaves extremely soft, be it tangzhong, udane or regular scald. There's only so much you can do with adding ingredients to bread dough. Sometimes you also have to alter the method, and scalding is by far the best method for achieving ultimate softness. If you really like soft breads, check out the enriched dough playlist. It's full of recipes containing eggs, butter, sugar, and using methods like scalding and tangzhong. And if you like your breads extra rich, head over to the brioche playlist. There are so many delicious recipes there. And double check if you are still subscribed to this channel. Quite a few people have told me that YouTube has been unsubscribing them. So look down below and click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.